In my second to last year as a classroom teacher before I moved into administration, I had two students in my class who were challenging. Yet at the same time, these were two of the students that had the biggest, most caring hearts in my class. I loved these kids, but like I said, they were challenging. They were both highly impulsive and required very frequent reminders to stay on task, not blurt out, be sure you raise your hand, don't play with things in your desk, those types of things. Again, as I said, loved these kids, great hearts, but I had to hold them accountable because I cared about them, and it was what was best for them to prepare them for the next year and for life. Now, fast forward to the last day of school. We had, like many classes have on the last day, we had our classroom party. And at the very end of the day, when the bell rang, we kind of said our goodbyes. I got a few hugs. I wished them a great summer and come back and see me next year. And I dismissed the class. And for about 5 minutes, I was cleaning up my classroom after the party, and then I had to head down to the office to get something out of my box. So I walked out of my classroom, and I turned to the right to head to the office, and there, standing in the quad area, were these two students that I had previously mentioned. It was a boy and a girl. So I kind of walked up to them, and after talking with them for a second, I discovered that they were waiting for their siblings, and then they were going to head out and get picked up by their moms. So I talked with them for a couple more minutes, and again wished them a good summer, and just before I was about to head down to the office, something very unexpected happened. The girl looked me right in the eyes, and her eyes welled up with tears, and she said, "I'm really going to miss you, Mr. Coley." She came forward and gave me a big hug. And then the boy, seeing this, it was almost as if he was given permission. He started to cry as well. He says, "I'm going to miss you too, Mr. Coley." He comes up and gives me a big hug. Now, if there were two students in my class that year who I may have guessed could have had my picture in the bullseye of their dartboard at home, it probably would have been these two students, because these were students that I was holding accountable all year. If there were two students who I would have thought couldn't wait to get out of my class, it probably would have been these two students. Yet, there I was, standing in the quad with the two students who I least would have expected to react this way, draped all over me, crying, saying that they're going to miss me. And the lesson that I learned from this experience was this: you will never see all the fruits of your labor. You will see some, but you will never see all of the fruits of your labor. See, had I not walked out of my classroom at that exact moment and had that encounter with these two students, I would have never known that this is how they felt about me. Had I not had that encounter, I would have gone home that day probably thinking, I probably wasn't their favorite teacher, because it's very common for students to think, well, he doesn't like me because he's telling me what to do and he's telling me not to do this. Yet these students recognized that I was holding them accountable. I was doing that not because I didn't like them. It was just the opposite. I was holding them accountable because I cared deeply for them, and I knew that that's what was best for them. So I would encourage you, if you're thinking with that one student or those couple students that, man, am I making a difference in that student's life? If you are treating that student with respect and compassion and caring, kids are smart, and they recognize that. Even if it's one of those students that you're having to hold accountable, you're having to give those reminders not to do this or not to do that, if you're doing so in a way that communicates love and respect and care, kids will recognize that. So remember, you may not see all the fruits of your labor, all the differences that you're making with your kids, but it doesn't mean that you're not making a difference.